Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Parenting Differently, where we leave behind the old way of parenting and allow the gifts of parenthood to raise us. Different to how we were raised, different to how society is telling us we should be raising our children, maybe even different to how we expected to raise our children. Just different. I'm your host, Anja Simmons, and it's just me today. Hello, hello, hello. I thought that I would perhaps step in and tell you a little bit about my journey to conscious parenting and parenting differently, and talking a little bit about some things that have come up through these interviews that precious, precious people that I am interviewing that are changing this world is so super exciting to me. So let's start. Let's start with me, Anja. Oh, once upon a time. Okay, we don't have to go there. So I grew up in England. You might be able to hear that in my accent. And I loved little children and was sort of babysitting all the time through my teens and wanted to. My mum was in nursery schools and little schools for little kids, like there's nursery school playgroups. That's the word I was looking for. And I then went on to train as a British nanny. In England, it was at that time, many years ago, called NNEB, Nursery Nurse Examination Board was the qualification you got. And that was regarding kids from birth to 7 years old. And then I look back, it is actually was a fantastic basis for living, but it was very much British ruled in terms of children should be seen and not heard. Children should obey. Children need to follow rules. Children, I don't think it quite went to should be seen and not heard. But yeah, definitely those kind of things. And so when I came into nannying, I carried that energy. I carried that idea that, these are the rules and you're going to obey them. This is bedtime, this is eating time, this is playtime, then we have bath time. Like everything was very set. Now, I was a lot of fun, definitely, and I really, really enjoyed little people. And I think a lot of what I enjoyed was just their little wisdom, the little ways their brains worked as you saw them learn things or grow. There were real new awarenesses in play, right? And so I got to be a nanny in England. Then I moved to Switzerland and was a nanny there. And then I came to Canada, Toronto, and British nannies were in high demand. I didn't know that at the time. We were just backpacking, my friend and I, around Canada and the States. And I got to stay in Canada as a British nanny. So I think I had 3 families. I went like that, but 3 families while I was here. It was super, super rewarding work, as well as I was quite a snobby judge of how other people were parenting. Let's be honest, right? So I would so often think, they don't whine when they're with me, or because I have the rules and the structure, they, are following. And then the parents come home and the kids would be the worst they could be. I get it now, but at the time I didn't really get it. So when I then, got married, ran a business, blah, 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 I had my son, I didn't have any hesitation in being a parent. I had wanted to be a parent. In fact, I had wanted to be a parent of a huge family, a big family. Originally, my husband and I, we would talk and I said, yeah, I want like a huge family, like 6 kids. And I loved that idea, that busyness, the excitement of everybody being there. In my head, I liked all that, right? And then I hold my little boy in my arms, and we'd had a bit of a traumatic birthing situation. So he sort of broke me open, wide open, for the love that I then had for this little person that I hadn't, as a nanny, experienced, obviously, quite the same. Although I did love them all, I hadn't experienced it quite the same. And what that changed in me was, as a little baby, I had a very supportive husband too, so we just kind of went with the flow of what the baby needed. When he needed to be awake, when he needed to sleep, when he wanted to nurse, we just went with it. Now then, as this little boy started to have a mind of his own and push back on things or say no to things that I've decided I thought were brilliant that we should be doing, or not follow along in the rules that I had in my head and placed into our family, things started to change. And I remember one time, he can't have been more than 2, it's little. I forget what he had done, but he had done something that I had deemed unacceptable. Or I had thought, I should do something about that. I came more from that place, like, oh, I'm slacking here. I need to, do something about this, or he's going to think that this is okay, right? We often live in that fear, and I certainly did, of what's this going to turn out? If I allow this experience, how is this going to show up in the future? Is he going to be spoiled? Is he going to think everything has to be his way? Is he going to be naughty? Is he going to be rude? Is he not going to be polite to people? That's a big British one, right? Be polite to people. Anyway, so he's only 2. He's just living a 2-year-old life. Anyway, so for whatever he'd done, I sort of was like, right, I need to punish him. And so I picked him up and I sat him on the couch, same couch he'd been sitting on 5 minutes before playing. And I said, okay, you need to sit here because whatever, I can't remember what he did. You need to sit here and Mummy will tell you when you can get down. And it was like a fake thing for me in that point, right? As a nanny, it felt very, very real. Whereas here's this little fella, he doesn't even have a clue what I'm talking about. And I sat him on the couch and he cried and he was just devastated. So funny. He's devastated he's sitting on the couch that he normally sits on and he's just been told he has to sit there. And my whole being was like, this is crazy. What am I doing? It doesn't even make any sense. I knew he didn't even know what I was doing. And it was the future me, past me deciding that he needs to learn a lesson, not to whatever he had done at 2 years old. Anyway, so eventually I think I just picked him up and put him on the floor and thought, okay, this is not going to work. And that was sort of a bit of a pivotal moment to start to realize that my gut and my intuition should be guiding me and not so much my head and my studies and my learnings and even my previous experience. So that sort of maybe started the conscious journey. I did definitely come into parenting thinking I was chilled and relaxed and realizing actually I was super anxious, and it was tied into pretending that I was relaxed and easygoing. It was a mask for who I really was and what I really wanted. I was horrified many a time by how he was acted or how he responded or certain things. And then I loved him from his toes to his nose that, excuse me, I had to rethink things. I had to sort of realize, okay, why is this making me feel this way? Why am I horrified? Why am I uncomfortable? He was just being him. And I could so appreciate him as him. But why was this coming back to me that I'm like, oh no, why did he say that? Oh my goodness, oh my God. And he was a big lesson for me in trusting and in knowing and letting him be who he was. And I wasn't great at it all the time, by the way. I'm sure he could tell you that too. But I know I wasn't, because I was very fear-based. And I was very fear-based and carried the thought that only I could keep him safe, only I could fulfill his needs, only I could help him be a good person in this world. And that, parents, mamas, is a huge burden for us to carry when we're coming from that place. So then I had baby number 2, and very different to baby number 1. Super laid back, super chilled, wasn't so bothered about needing us. My older one, which is after the firstborn, right? We were like, oh, look, wow, oh, he clapped. And you're like right in there, which is fantastic. And then the second one, I can't imagine had I had 6, because after the second one, we were like, okay, I'm done. I hadn't realized what a toll it would take on my energy and my brain to keep trying to do it right, to try to do it in a different way. And to work with this idea of trusting my gut and not what everybody is saying. And even if people weren't saying, my brain was already saying it, right? What you should, you could, you mustn't, you have to. So that's sort of where my journey was. And then obviously as they got older and working with things, I also got more into really starting to know myself more. When I started doing yoga teacher training, which was a huge thing for me to sort of say, this is something for me, because I was lost there in motherhood. Although we were running our own business, my life was around them. My life was fulfilled by them. My life was totally, on their happiness, and did they get outside today, and what have they eaten, and all of these things, almost I think as an excuse from having to examine myself, or from having to stand up and say, actually, I'm not so happy at work, or having to say, I'm not enjoying this relationship, not just with my husband, with friends, with people, right? I was slowly starting to then uncover myself. So then when I started yoga teacher training, YTT, and I did it in the Kripalu tradition, that was almost a savior for me for a while there, in that I just lapped it up like I did when I went to nanny training. I hated school, sucked at school. But when I was doing something that I really was interested in, it just fulfilled me. I felt so good. I felt so interested in what they had to say. So from nanny training to now yoga teacher training, it was, I think, 20 years later. Yeah, probably. And so I started then actually having a piece of me in the world. And actually before that, when I actually started taking yoga classes and sitting on a mat and breathing and just being Anja for a moment, changed my life. Changed the way I then came home to parent. Changed the way I felt about me, myself. So that sort of was my journey. I was a yoga, was still up until lockdown, yoga teacher for many years. I have taught in daycares, little kids yoga, all the way up to seniors yoga. And yoga for me is a way of life. It's a way of connecting to myself. It's a way of connecting to nature. A way of feeling connected to the world. My kids, however, do not particularly like anything about yoga. Let's just put that out there. When they were little, I could sneak it in a little more, and I would drop them off to school talking about breathing and about standing in your glory, Om Namah Shivaya. And they'd be like, oh my God, you weirdo, and slam the door, right? So that's then their own journey, right? You want to push on your things. You go, wow, if I could just give you all the wisdom that I've now learned, if I could pass that on to you, oh, you'd be ahead of the game. But we know that's not how it works, right? Alrighty, so then coming into parent coaching, still got paint on my hands. I know, it's so dreadful. I have to wash it up. Coming into the yoga teaching, the coaching, that's what I was saying, evolved just naturally. That's something I realized that I was supporting women for many, many years, and I loved it. And I knew that it wasn't the children that I wanted to be working with, it was the parents. And so that's sort of how this has sort of evolved and moving forward. And now parenting differently. I'll do another episode on how parenting differently has actually come about, because that's a very, very neat story on manifestation and jumping in. So that's me. So I am a married woman for many, many years. And my 2 children are, my daughter is 19 and my son is 22. And now let's discuss a little bit about when I keep talking about and harping on the old way of parenting. Like, what does that mean, right? And I think that we have to address what the old way of parenting is by just even looking at the world that we're living in today, right? Just the people we're encountering, the people on the TV, the people in our politics, in the big houses. You know, we need to see how are they evolving and have they evolved. And let's take it back. When they started life as that precious little baby, they were whole, complete love. They were love. Hopefully they were loved. That's what we want for everybody. But it's the parenting part. Now, not to put guilt and shame on, good God, no, we don't want more of that. More to be the point of that it has to evolve. So the old way of parenting, got a little sidetracked then, as I do. The old way of parenting, I'm talking about many things, but one main thing would be that we were raised, society's raised, people older than me are raised, and people are still raising with the top-down parenting. Meaning that I am the parent. This is what I spoke about with my nanny journey. I am the parent and you are the child. You need to listen to me. I am the wise one. I am the smart one. I am in control. I have the power. I am the leader. Listen to me, right? And in doing that, the child we're not acknowledging the wiseness, how wise our kids are, how as is fantastic they are, just as they are. We're having them follow me and my rules to make me feel good, right? Or to make me feel that I've done my parenting job, right? You think of it as a job. It takes up all the hours of a job, more so when you're not paid. But the old way, top down, isn't relevant. We can't keep doing that. Yes, we are older. Yes, we are maybe in some areas wiser, but we're wiser for ourselves. We're not necessarily wiser for them. They are coming into this world with a different personality, a different mindset. They are their own person. And so there has to be some sort of evolving and collaboration in how we are raising children and how actually children help us raise ourselves. And in the top-down parenting, we're not open to that, right? The concept of don't do as I do as I say. I don't know if that's just a British thing, but that's sort of that old way of parenting, right? I might be a shitbag and horrible to people, but you go say please, you go say thank you. You make sure you work really hard. Meanwhile, you see me lazing around on the couch. No fighting, and then all they see is you fighting, right? All of that stuff. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, people. We also, the old way of parenting is this idea of shame, putting shame on. You're a bad person. You did this just in spite of me. You did this to me. You're a mean person, right? There's a shame, and that has to stop. Fuck, that has to stop. That has to be out of the picture. This shaming. That is detrimental to everybody. That person who has been shamed comes in contact with. Okay, go listen to Brene Brown. She's got that down. But I just know can't keep parenting in that way, right? We want to make you remember this is the old way of parenting. We want to make sure you don't get too big for your britches, too big for your boots. Well, britches, I don't even know, but too big for your boots, right? We want to keep you humble, and we would do that by shaming you, by not making you feel good about yourself, because that's what we think is how we grow another person. Crazy again, right? The idea of the old way of parenting that your children need to make you proud. Your children live the life that you wish you had lived. Or the other way, that you actually want to keep your child down so that you can feel better about yourself. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. You know, the idea that as this person is a little person, or before they're even born, we have this expectation and this idea of my child, right? We want ownership of somebody. My child will be a doctor, a lawyer, a famous pianist, right? We've decided that regardless of the person, regardless of this little person's spirit, their joys, their interests, right? We don't even give them a chance to figure that out. We've already got it. You're going to be the best tennis player in the world, right? That's what you're going to be, right? Does that not sound crazy? Am I just the only one who thinks that's crazy? They're here to live out your goals. I tried it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. They don't want my goals. They're not interested. And then the other way, then this is, I feel, more a female thing, more of a mother thing, that we are told as mothers, and we're raised as females to be this kind of mother, that we are the martyr. We give of all of ourselves so that our children can be happy. We don't need anything for ourselves. Oh, you take the loss, this, or I give everything to my children. Everything is about my children being happy. I have to tell you, that's a burden. That's a huge burden that we are putting on the next generation, right? That they are there to fulfill you. And that you are also showing that I'm a nothing. I'm just here for you. That's wrong. I should be here for me. I should show my worth and my value through my experiences so that you feel your own worth and your own value. Right? Is this making sense to you? I mean, please, I'd love to comment on people who think that this is all, I'm trying to hide my hand, that they think that this is ridiculous. But to me, it just makes so much sense that this is the way we have to do things, right? And that we don't want to show our vulnerability to our kids, right? We don't want to share when we've messed up. We don't want to share. We cover that up. Kind of like Santa, right? You put Santa on this big pedestal. Many of us have put our parents on this big pedestal, and it's a shock when you found out that they have some faults. Well, I don't know if Santa has faults, but maybe his belly. Maybe he should lose a bit of weight, but I don't know if he has faults. But I'm saying, like, the myth of Santa, when you find out that it's not real, for many kids, that's devastating. So imagine your own parents, right? That you thought your mum was the best and the most smartest, fantastic person in the world, and she has no faults, and she should be up there on a crown, on a stool with a crown on. And then you realize she's actually just a regular person trying her best in life, right? And definitely as mothers, we come into this, I would say 100% of us, wanting to do right? Wanting to help little people because we love them. And then all that other shit comes in, and we're not in the position of thinking of the big goal, right? I was just speaking to Shelley Robinson earlier today. You can look for her podcast. It will be later on in the year. And we were talking about this burden of feeling that it's all down to us, right? That we carry the burden of it's only me that can fix you, that can help you, that can keep you safe, it's only me. And not peeling back the layers and realizing that they're so wise. They are so wise. And we're not talking no boundaries and no rules and no things, of course, right? We're real people. We have those things. Those things are essential, right? For our own self. There's certain rules in society that we follow and that we want to follow, we want to be a part of. Unless you're going to live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. But, then that's your choice. Is that your choice of your child? Let's see. So, yes, we were talking about how making sure that what is the ultimate goal? And for many of us, we think it's, I just want my child to be happy. And then we're talking about maybe drug addicts are happy when they get their fix, right? Is that it? Is that all you want? What about a fulfilled person? What about somebody who comes into the world being really comfortable with who they are? And it can't be that if we're not that, right? So it's an ongoing journey to not have our kids plug our holes, because they're quite willing to. It's a bit odd, but plug our wounds, plug our holes, the things that we're missing. I remember even from when I first had my son, I suddenly felt, and I was lucky enough to conceive easy and give birth. Birth wasn't easy, but he came via me, I should say. So I was very grateful and fortunate for that. And I suddenly felt so womanly and so me. I stood taller. I felt more, probably more sexy, more, I'm just, here I am, woman. Here I am, world. Well, I am woman. Hear me roar, right? I felt more of that. But had I come into parenting already feeling that, already feeling me, already content with me, already content with what the world will see of me, regardless of what they say or what the, you know, I'm imagining people want me to be or want me to change, right? So I'm going to leave that there. I think that's enough of me yabbing on. I have loads of ideas coming in, so I'm going to try and be a bit more formalized, but that ain't going to happen. And I will leave this as our next podcast coming out, next video coming out. And yes, please post your comments if there's something you would like me to get more into for myself or for some of the mums I speak to. If you would like to be on the show, if you feel like this is really resonating with you and you're in these awarenesses as well, don't have to parent differently in the way that I'm assuming. Maybe you've just chosen a different way. Maybe you grew up with no rules and you're parenting in a way where there are rules, and we could discuss more around that, how that is for you. What is that working? Is that not working? Is that the best way you feel, right? For your family, for your child, because you know, mamas, you are doing an amazing job, amazing. And I want you to really sit and breathe into the fact that you are showing up. Every day you are showing up to do the best you can. So be kind to yourself, be loving to yourself, and make sure you're not at the bottom of the list of to-dos. Don't put yourself at the bottom. Thank you.